The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched upward like a cathedral made of starlight. Thousands of alien species filled the curved seats, their bodies glowing, shifting, and pulsing in colors that human eyes could barely understand. At the center of this vast chamber stood Commander Lyra Vasquez, her hands bound behind her back with energy cuffs that hummed against her wrists. She was 34 years old. She had served in the Human Defense Fleet for 12 years. She had saved 12,000 civilian lives at the siege of Kethrani Prime by disobeying a direct order to retreat. And now she was going to pay for it. The High Guardian floated down from his elevated throne. He was crystalline, one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. His body was made of living mineral that caught the light and broke it into cold rainbows. When he spoke, his voice sounded like glass scraping against stone. "Commander Lyra Vasquez of the Human Defense Fleet," he announced. "You have been found guilty of insubordination. You ignored the orders of your superior officers. You endangered your crew. You violated 17 articles of the Galactic Military Code." Lyra kept her back straight and her eyes forward. She did not look away from the High Guardian's fasted gaze. "The Council does not believe in execution," the High Guardian continued. "We do not believe in imprisonment. We believe in exile. We believe in sending the guilty to places where they may reflect on their crimes." A murmur passed through the assembled species. They knew what was coming. Everyone knew. "For your crime, Commander Vasquez, you are sentenced to exile on Nexus 7. The murmur became a gasp. Several species made sounds of shock or pity. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. Nexus 7, the Untamed world, the planet that had killed every colonization attempt in galactic history. The world where nature itself seemed to hate intelligent life. The High Guardian's crystal face showed no emotion. "You will be given a basic survival kit and transport to the planet's surface. You may take only what you can carry. The Galactic Council wishes you well, Commander. Perhaps your species' famous adaptability will grant you a few extra days of life." Lyra finally spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. "I saved 12,000 people, children, families, people who would have died if I had followed orders." "You broke the law," the High Guardian replied. "The law exists for a reason. Individual heroism cannot be allowed to override the chain of command. Today you saved lives. Tomorrow, another soldier might cost lives by following your example. Then the law is wrong." The High Guardian made a sound like breaking ice. It took Lyra a moment to realize he was laughing. Humans, always so certain, always so stubborn. Perhaps that stubbornness will serve you well on Nexus 7. For a few hours at least. They took her away in Chains. The transport ship was small and simple. It had no weapons, no long-range communications, and barely enough fuel to reach the planet and land. The pilot was a machine, not a living being. It would drop her on the surface and return to space, leaving her alone on a world that wanted her dead. Lyra sat in the cargo hold and checked her survival kit. A knife, a fire starter, water purification tablets, a medical kit with basic supplies, a broken communicator that might work for short-range signals if she could repair it, emergency rations for perhaps 2 weeks, 2 weeks of food on a planet where no one had survived longer than 3 months. She should have been afraid. She should have been angry. Instead, she felt something strange and unexpected. She felt curious. What was it about Nexus 7 that killed everyone who tried to live there? The Guardians called it the Untamed world. But what did that really mean? Every planet had dangers. Every world had predators and poisons and environmental hazards. Humanity had spread across dozens of star systems by learning to adapt to hostile conditions. What made this one different? The transport began its descent. Through the small viewport, Lyra watched Nexus 7 grow larger. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Swirling clouds of purple and green covered most of the surface. Lightning storms the size of continents flickered across the atmosphere. The planet seemed alive somehow, breathing and moving in ways that planets should not move. Warning lights began to flash. The ship's systems were failing. Instruments went dark one by one. The pilot machine spoke in a flat, calm voice. Atmospheric interference is draining power systems. Landing protocols compromised. Adjusting approach vector. Lyra gripped her seat as the ship shook. Through the viewport, she could see the surface now. Forests that glowed with inner light. Mountains that seemed to pulse like beating hearts. Rivers that changed color as she watched. Landing in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Power failure imminent. Brace for impact. The crash was hard but survivable. Lyra found herself lying on the floor of the cargo hold, her ears ringing and her shoulder aching where she had struck the wall. Emergency lights flickered red. Smoke filled the air. She grabbed her survival kit and crawled toward the hatch. It took all her strength to force it open. Cool air rushed in, and she tumbled out on the soft ground. For a long moment, she just lay there, staring up at an alien sky. The clouds above her swirled in patterns that seemed almost intentional. The air tasted like copper and lightning. Everything around her glowed with soft bioluminescence. She was alone on a planet that had killed everyone who came before her. She had no ship, no rescue coming, no hope of escape. The Guardians expected her to die here, forgotten and unmourned. Lyra Vasquez stood up slowly. Her shoulder hurt. Her head was spinning. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but she was alive. And as long as she was alive, she would keep fighting. She looked around at the alien landscape. The forest nearby was moving, she realized. Not swaying in the wind, but actually moving, trees shifting position like slow animals. The ground beneath her feet was warm, almost hot, and she could feel vibrations passing through it like a heartbeat. "Okay," she said out loud. Her voice sounded small in the vast silence. "You want to kill me. Every species that ever came here, you killed them. The Guardians think you'll kill me too." She picked up her survival kit and slung it over her good shoulder. "But here's the thing about humans. We evolved on a death world too. Our planet threw ice ages at us, and we survived. It threw plagues at us, and we survived. It threw predators and volcanoes and floods and famines at us, and we survived every single time." She took her first step into the glowing forest. "So do your worst, Nexer 7. I'm not going anywhere." The forest seemed to shiver around her. The ground vibrations changed, becoming faster, more urgent. Something in the distance made a sound like screaming metal. Lyra smiled grimly and kept walking. She had a lot to learn about this world if she wanted to survive. And she intended to survive for a very, very long time. The first month on Nexer 7 nearly killed Lyra 7 times. The first near death came on day 3, when she learned that the moving forest was not many trees, but one enormous creature. It hunted by feeling vibrations in the ground. When she walked, it felt her. When she ran, it chased her. She barely escaped by climbing onto a rock formation that the forest creature could not reach. The second near death came on day 5, when she drank from a clear stream without testing the water first. Within hours, she was burning with fever and seeing things that were not there. Something in the water was trying to change her brain, to rewrite her thoughts. She spent 2 days fighting the infection with nothing but willpower and the basic medicines in her kit. The third, near death, came from the air itself. The soil released tiny particles that floated up and entered her lungs. They made her sleepy, made her want to lie down and rest. She almost did. She almost closed her eyes and let the planet take her. But something in her refused to give up, and she crawled to higher ground where the air was clean. On and on it went. The predators that hunted by heat. the plants that shot poison darts, the insects that tried to lay eggs under her skin. Every day brought a new danger. Every night brought new terrors. But Lyra was human. And humans were very, very good at learning. She started keeping notes. At first, she scratched them into rocks with her knife. Later, she found a type of plant that produced a dark liquid she could use as ink. She wrote down everything she observed, everything she survived, everything she learned. The forest creature avoided certain areas. Why? She investigated and found that those areas were rich in a specific mineral. The mineral gave off a vibration that the creature did not like. Lyra collected samples of the mineral and carried them with her. The forest stopped chasing her. The water parasites could not survive in hot water. Lyra learned to boil everything she drank. The parasites died and her mind stayed clear. The sleep spores from the soil followed a cycle. They were most dangerous in the hours after sunrise and became inactive at night. Lyra adjusted her schedule, sleeping during the dangerous hours in protected areas and traveling at night when the spores were dormant. Pattern by pattern, danger by danger, she mapped the rules of this world. It was not random chaos. It was a system, complex and interconnected. Everything served a purpose. Everything had a reason. And slowly, Lyra began to understand something important. Nexus 7 was not just dangerous. It was defensive. The planet was protecting itself. One night, about 6 weeks after her arrival, Lyra sat on a hill overlooking a valley of glowing crystals. The crystals sang to each other in frequencies that she could feel in her bones. Below her, creatures moved through the crystal forest. Predators and prey engaged in an ancient dance. She thought about what the High Guardian had said. No species had survived longer than 3 cycles on this world. Dozens of colonization attempts had failed. Thousands of individuals had died here over thousands of years. But why? What made Nexus 7 so hostile to intelligent life? Lyra had seen hostile planets before. She had trained on worlds with toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and deadly wildlife. Those planets were dangerous, but they were not personal about it. They did not care if you lived or died. Nexus 7 was different. Nexus 7 seemed to care very much. Its hostility was focused, intentional, directed specifically at intelligent beings who tried to establish permanent settlements, which meant that something had happened here. Something in the past. Something that taught this world to hate visitors. Lyra stood up and walked down into the crystal valley. The singing grew louder as she approached, vibrating through her body. She had learned that these crystals were mostly harmless if you moved slowly and did not touch the red ones. The red ones stored electrical charge and would shock anything that came too close. She found a clear spot among the blue and green crystals and sat down. The song surrounded her, complex and beautiful and alien. "What happened to you?" she asked out loud. Her voice felt small against the vastness of the crystal song. "Who hurt you so badly that you learned to kill everyone who comes here?" There was no answer. Of course, there was no answer. A planet could not talk, but Lyra had the strange feeling that something was listening. She started spending more time simply observing. Not running, not fighting, not trying to survive from moment to moment, but actually watching how this world worked. She saw how the forest creature and the crystal valleys and the underground rivers all connected. She saw how predators and prey maintained a careful balance. She saw how the planet's many dangers worked together like parts of a single immune system. Nexus 7 was alive. Not just covered in life, but alive itself. A vast, ancient, intelligent organism that spanned the entire globe. The animals, the plants, the minerals, the weather, everything was connected to everything else. And all of it was controlled by a single consciousness that Lyra could not see but was beginning to feel. At the end of her 2nd month, she made a decision. She stopped fighting against the planet. She stopped trying to conquer it or beat it or prove herself stronger than it. Instead, she started trying to fit in. She modified her behavior to cause less disruption. She took only what she needed. She gave back what she could. When she killed an animal for food, she used every part and buried the bones. When she gathered plants, she spread their seeds. When she moved through the forest creature's territory, she walked softly and apologized for the intrusion. It felt foolish. It felt like talking to a wall. But something in her gut told her it was the right approach. And slowly, almost too slowly to notice, things began to change. The attacks became less frequent. The dangers became easier to predict. Animals that had hunted her started ignoring her. Plants that had tried to poison her began offering fruit. One morning, Lyra woke up to find a tendril from the forest creature lying next to her shelter. It was not attacking. It was just there, resting, like a dog sleeping at its owner's feet. She reached out and touched it gently. The tendril was warm and rough, like bark over muscle. It did not pull away. "Hello," she whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to take anything from you. I just want to live." The tendril curled slightly, almost like a hand closing around her fingers. Lyra smiled for the first time in months. She was starting to understand this world. And maybe, just maybe, this world was starting to understand her. By the 6th month, Lyra had done what the Guardians said was impossible. She had built a home on the Untamed world. Her shelter was not a building in the normal sense. She had not cut down trees or dug foundations or hammered nails. Instead, she had made a deal with a fungus. The fungus was actually a network of tiny organisms that covered several square kilometers of ground. It fed on carbon dioxide and organic waste. In return, it could grow into shapes. Lyra had spent weeks communicating with it through trial and error, feeding it in certain patterns, guiding its growth with careful touches. Eventually, it understood what she wanted. Now she lived inside a dome of living fungal material. The walls were warm and dry. The structure repaired itself if damaged. Air flowed through natural vents that the fungus had grown. It was not pretty by human standards, but it was safe and comfortable and entirely her own. Her food came from plants that had learned to tolerate her presence. Some of them had been hostile at first, shooting spores or closing their leaves when she approached. But Lyra had been patient. She had studied what they needed. She had helped them grow, protected them from predators, spread their seeds to new areas. In return, they now offered her their fruit without resistance. She had even made friends with some of the predators. A pack of 6-legged hunters had started following her on her daily walks. At first she thought they were stalking her, waiting for weakness. But they never attacked. They just watched, curious, like children observing a strange new animal. One day, she left some food for them. The next day, they left food for her. Now they shared meals sometimes, sitting together in silence while the alien stars came out. Survival was no longer enough. Lyra wanted more. She had felt the planet's consciousness several times now. Brief touches, like brushing against someone in a crowd. She knew it was there, vast and ancient and powerful beyond imagination. She wanted to talk to it. She needed to understand why this world was the way it was. The first attempt at direct contact put her in a coma for 6 days. She had tried to force her mind outward, to push her thoughts into the planet's awareness. It was like trying to shout at an ocean. The backlash hit her like a physical blow. When she woke up, she could not remember her own name for several hours. The second attempt was more careful. She spent weeks preparing, meditating, clearing her thoughts. She found a sacred spot, a place where the planet's energy seemed to gather like water in a pool. She sat there for 3 days without eating, opening her mind as gently as she could. The The contact came in a flash of overwhelming sensation. She felt the entire planet at once. Every creature, every plant, every stone and river and cloud. The weight of it crushed her consciousness. When she woke up, she was blind. The blindness lasted for 2 weeks, but she did not give up. She was human. Giving up was not something humans did. The third attempt came after 3 months of preparation. She had studied old human techniques for expanded consciousness. Meditation practices from ancient Earth. Mental exercises developed by human explorers who had contacted alien minds before. She combined everything she knew into a single careful approach. She returned to the sacred spot. She sat down cross-legged on the warm ground. She closed her eyes and began to breathe slowly and deeply. Instead of pushing outward, she pulled inward. She made herself small and quiet and still. She did not try to force contact. She simply opened herself and waited. Days passed. She did not move. Her predator friends brought her water. Her plant allies dropped fruit near her hands. The fungus network grew a shelter over her head to protect her from rain. And on the 7th day, the planet spoke. It did not use words. It was too vast for words. Instead, it spoke in feelings, images, memories. Lyra felt herself swept up in a story that spanned millions of years. She saw Nexus 7 as it once was. Young and wild and full of life, but not hostile. Welcoming, even. A garden world where many species had lived in harmony. She saw the visitors come. Ships from distant stars, carrying beings who saw the planet as a resource to be exploited. They cut down the forests. They poisoned the waters. They stripped the minerals from the ground and left nothing but scars. She felt the planet's pain. Not anger at first, just confusion and hurt. Why were they doing this? Why were they taking so much? Why did they not understand that they were killing something alive? She saw the planet fight back. Slowly at first, then faster. Learning to be hostile. Learning to kill. Developing defenses that grew more sophisticated with each passing century. The exploiters fled or died. Other visitors came, and they died too. Eventually, everyone learned to stay away from the untamed world. And underneath all of it, Lyra felt loneliness. A vast, ancient, terrible loneliness. Nexus 7 had not wanted to become a killer. It had not wanted to be alone. But it had learned, through centuries of pain, that the only way to survive was to trust no one. Lyra opened her eyes. Tears were streaming down her face. "I understand," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They hurt you. They used you and abandoned you. And now you're afraid that everyone who comes here will do the same thing." The planet's consciousness hovered around her, vast and uncertain. It had never communicated with anyone like this before. It had only ever fought or fled. "I'm not here to take anything from you," Lyra continued. "I'm not here to exploit you or strip you bare. I'm here because I had nowhere else to go. I'm here because your enemies sent me here to die." She felt the planet processing this information. It was used to enemies. It understood enemies. But what Lyra was describing was something different. "I want to live with you," she said. "Not above you. Not against you. With you. As a partner. As a friend. I know that sounds crazy. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I'm asking you to try." A long silence. The wind stopped blowing. The crystals stopped singing. Everything on the planet seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Lyra felt something change. A door that had been locked for millions of years creaked open just a crack. "Perhaps," the planet said. Its voice was the grinding of stone, the whisper of leaves, the heartbeat of a world. "Perhaps we will see." Lyra smiled through her tears. It was not acceptance. It was not trust. But it was a beginning, and beginnings were enough. The Guardian ship came down through the purple clouds on a morning in Lyra's third year on Nex AR-VII. She watched it descend from the peak of what she called Mount Communion. The mountain had grown specifically to accommodate her. It had started as a small hill, but over the months it had risen higher and higher, adding platforms and paths and sheltered areas where she could rest. Now it offered her a view of half the world, a throne from which she could see the glowing forests and crystal valleys and singing rivers that had become her home. The ship was beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful. Silver and sleek, designed by the Kethrani, one of the oldest and most respected species in the Galactic Council. It broadcast diplomatic codes as it descended, announcing its peaceful intentions. Lyra did not move from her spot. She simply watched and waited. The ship landed in a clearing about 2 kilometers from the base of her mountain. Its engines powered down, and a door opened in its side. 3 figures emerged. The first was Ishtari, a being made of liquid light that communicated through colors. The second was Vorn, a massive creature of stone and metal, 7 feet tall and nearly as wide. The third was Human, a young woman in a military uniform, probably sent along to make the delegation seem more friendly. They started walking toward the mountain. The forest creatures stirred around them, curious but not hostile. A pack of predators shadowed them through the undergrowth. The envoys walked faster, clearly nervous. Lyra descended to meet them halfway. She knew she looked different than she had 3 years ago. Her skin was darker from the alien sun. Her muscles were harder from climbing and running and surviving. She wore armor made from the shed shells of creatures that had once hunted her and now served as her companions. Her hair was long and wild, decorated with glowing crystals that sang softly in the breeze. The Ishtari envoy stopped when she appeared. Its colors flickered through shades of disbelief, fear, and something that might have been awe. "Commander Vasquez," it said, "you are alive." "More than alive," Lyra replied. Her voice was calm and strong. "I'm home." The human soldiers stared at her with wide eyes. "The record said you would be dead within weeks." The council was certain. The council was wrong about many things. Lyra gestured around her at the living forest, the watching predators, the mountain that had grown itself to serve her. They called this world Untamed because they could not control it. They sent me here as a punishment, expecting the planet to execute me. But I did not come here to control anything. I came here to listen. The Vorn stepped forward, its stone body grinding with each movement. "We came to recover remains, to document the final days of your exile for the archives." The council wanted closure. Lyra laughed. It was not a kind sound. The council wanted to forget about me. They wanted to wrap up my story in a neat little package and file it away. The troublesome human who broke the rules, punished appropriately, case closed. She stepped closer to the envoys. Behind her, the mountain made a sound like distant thunder. The forest creature moved closer, its tendrils reaching toward the visitors. The predator pack emerged from the shadows, their eyes fixed on the aliens. "Tell the council something for me," Lyra said. "Tell them that Nexus 7 is no longer uninhabited. It has a voice now. It has a protector. It has a partner." The Ishtari's colors shifted rapidly. "A partner? What do you mean?" Lyra held out her hand. A small creature climbed up her arm and settled on her shoulder. It was beautiful and strange, with crystalline wings and multiple eyes that glowed with inner light. Lyra had never seen one like it before she came to this world. Now it was her constant companion, a gift from the planet itself. "I mean that I am no longer just a human stranded on an alien world. I am the bridge between your civilization and this one. I speak for the Untamed, and the Untamed speaks through me." The human soldier found her voice. "The Guardians will never accept this. They believe Nexus 7 is nothing but a dangerous wilderness. They will not negotiate with the planet. Then they will have to learn. Lyra smiled, and it was a dangerous expression. The galaxy has changed since they last paid attention. Humanity has changed. We are not the young, weak species they dismissed at their council tables. We adapt. We survive. We form partnerships that others cannot imagine. She turned and began walking back toward her mountain. The envoys hesitated, unsure whether to follow. "You are welcome to stay," Lyra called over her shoulder. "You are welcome to see what I have built here. But understand this, you are guests in my home. You will follow my rules. You will respect this world and everything that lives on it." The Ishtari and the Vorn exchanged uncertain looks. But the human soldier stepped forward. "I want to see," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I want to understand how you did this." Lyra stopped and turned back. For a long moment, she studied the young woman. She saw curiosity there, and wonder, and something else. Hope, perhaps. The hope of someone who had been told all her life what was impossible and was now seeing the impossible made real. "What is your name, soldier?" "Lieutenant Chen. Maria Chen." Lyra nodded. "Come with me, Lieutenant Chen. I will show you what happens when humans stop trying to conquer and start trying to cooperate." She led them up the mountain. The path was alive, adjusting itself to make the climb easier for the visitors. Plants along the way offered fruit and clean water. Animals watched from safe distances, curious but not threatening. At the summit, they found Lyra's home. It was not a house or a base or a settlement. It was a living community, grown from the planet itself. Fungal domes housed her sleeping quarters and storage areas. Crystal towers collected and stored energy from the alien sun. Gardens of alien plants provided food and medicine. And everywhere, there was life. Creatures of all sizes moved through the space, going about their business, ignoring the visitors completely. They had no fear. This was their home as much as it was Lyra's. Lieutenant Chun turned in a slow circle, her mouth hanging open. "This is impossible." The report said the wildlife here attacks everything that moves. "It attacks threats," Lyra corrected. "It attacks invaders. It attacks those who come to take without giving. I am none of those things. I am part of this world now, and it is part of me." The Ishtari envoy flickered with uncomfortable colors. "The Council will not know how to respond to this. You are claiming rights over an entire planet." "I am claiming partnership," Lyra said firmly. "There's a difference. I do not own Nexus 7. I do not control it. We work together. We protect each other. We have become something new, something that has never existed before in the galaxy." She looked down over the vast landscape below, watching the forests move and the rivers shine and the mountains breathe. "Tell the Council they can send their envoys. They can send their scientists. They can even send their soldiers if they want. But anyone who comes here with hostile intent will be dealt with. Not by me, but by the world itself." Her eyes found the Ishtari. "And tell the High Guardian something else. Tell him I remember what he said to me at my trial. He told me that individual heroism cannot be allowed to override the chain of command. He told me the law is more important than lives." She smiled coldly. "Tell him I found a place where the only law is survival, and I have become very, very good at surviving." 5 years after her exile, Lyra Vasquez returned to the Galactic Council. She did not come as a prisoner this time. She came as an ambassador. Her ship was not made of metal and circuits. It was alive, grown from the same materials that made up her home on Nexus 7. It moved through space like a creature swimming through water, beautiful and strange and utterly unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The council chambers were exactly as she remembered them. Thousands of alien species filling the curved seats. light streaming down from the vast ceiling. The High Guardian floating on his elevated throne, his crystal body catching the light. But something was different now. The species that had watched her trial with indifference or amusement were watching her with fear. The murmurs that passed through the chamber were not mocking. They were nervous. Behind Lyra, broadcast on every screen in the room, Nexus 7 filled the display. But it was not the chaotic wilderness the Council remembered. The forests had organized themselves into vast geometric patterns visible from space. Mountain ranges had shifted to spell out symbols in languages older than most civilizations. The oceans moved in coordinated waves, pulsing like a heartbeat. The planet was awake. And it was paying attention. Lyra walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. She was dressed in armor grown from the strongest materials Nexus 7 could produce. Living crystals glowed in her hair. Small creatures perched on her shoulders, watching the assembled aliens with intelligent eyes. "High Guardian," she said. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast room. 5 years ago, you stood in this chamber and sentenced me to death. You called it exile, but we both know the truth. You expected Nexus 7 to kill me within days. The High Guardian's crystal form flickered. "Commander Vasquez, your survival is unexpected. My survival is a lesson." Lyra began to walk, circling the chamber slowly. Every species she passed flinched back from her. "You sent me to the Untamed world because you thought it was the worst fate you could imagine. A planet so hostile that no intelligent life could survive there. A place of chaos and death." She stopped and faced the Council directly. "But you were wrong. Nexus 7 was never chaotic. It was never random. It was defending itself against invaders. It was protecting itself from species that came to exploit and destroy." The screens behind her shifted, showing images from her 5 years on the planet. Her early struggles, her growing understanding, her communion with the planetary consciousness, her partnership with the world that was supposed to kill her. "Humans have a saying," Lyra continued. "What does not kill you makes you stronger. Your punishment made me stronger than you can possibly imagine." The High Guardian floated down from his throne. His crystal face showed no emotion, but his movements were stiff, uncertain. "What do you want, Commander? Why have you come here?" "I want 3 things." Lyra held up one finger. "First, I want my exile officially ended. I am not a criminal. I am a citizen of the galaxy, with all the rights that come with that status." A murmur passed through the chamber. The High Guardian said nothing. Lyra held up a second finger. "Second, I want Nexus 7 recognized as a sovereign entity. It is not a wilderness to be colonized or a resource to be exploited. It is a living, intelligent being with the right to determine its own future." The murmur became louder. Several species began arguing with each other. The idea of granting rights to a planet was unprecedented. Lyra held up a third finger. "Third, I want a seat on this council. Not as a representative of Earth or humanity's existing colonies. As the voice of the Untamed. As the bridge between your civilization and one that is older and more powerful than anything you have ever encountered." The High Guardian made a sound like shattering glass. "Impossible. The Council has existed for 10,000 years. We have protocols. We have traditions. We cannot simply grant membership to a planet." "You can and you will." Lyra's voice was calm but firm. "Because if you do not, you will face the alternative." She gestured, and the screens changed again. They showed fleets of ships from dozens of species, gathered at the edge of Nexus 7's star system. Mining vessels, colony ships, military escorts. The Korthax Consortium has been waiting for an opportunity to claim Nexus the Seventh's resources for centuries, Lyra said. The Valdari Empire wants its mineral deposits. The Tresh Collective believes its biological samples could be worth trillions. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species she recognized from those factions. They have all assumed that the planet would eventually become available, that someone would find a way to tame it, to break it, to make it safe for exploitation. They have been waiting for the day when the untamed world finally falls. Her voice hardened. That day will never come. Nexus 7 will never fall. And anyone who tries to take it by force will face the combined defenses of a planetary consciousness that has been preparing for invaders for millions of years. She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. I have seen what Nexus 7 can do when it is truly angry. Asteroids redirected. Solar flares manipulated. Diseases engineered to target specific species. You think your fleets are powerful? They are nothing compared to a world that has learned to weaponize itself. Silence filled the chamber. The nervous murmurs had stopped. Every species in the room was thinking about what Lyra had said, calculating the risks, imagining the consequences. The High Guardian spoke slowly. You are threatening us. No, Lyra shook her head. I am offering you a choice. You can accept Nexus 7 as a partner and gain access to knowledge and resources beyond anything you have encountered. Or you can try to take what is not yours and learn why the untamed world has stayed untamed for so long. She stepped forward, close enough to touch the High Guardian's crystal form. I was a soldier once. I understand war. I understand violence. I understand the terrible calculus of lives spent and lives saved. But I also understand something you have forgotten. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation. She looked up at the screens, at the image of her home. Nexus 7 and I have built something new. A partnership between human and planet, between intelligence and nature, between the galaxy and its most feared world. We can share what we have learned. We can help other species find better ways of living. We can be allies and friends. Her eyes found the High Guardian again. Or we can be enemies. The choice is yours. A long silence. Then, slowly, the High Guardian floated back to his throne. His crystal body was dim, his colors muted. He looked tired somehow, ancient in a way he had not seen before. The council will deliberate, he said finally. Your requests are unprecedented. They require careful consideration. Lyra nodded. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. She turned and began walking toward the chamber's exit. The assembled species parted before her like water before a ship. None willing to stand in her path. At the door, she stopped and looked back. Remember this moment, she said. Remember the day when a single human, exiled and abandoned, came back to face the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Remember that she did not come alone. She came as the voice of a world. Her eyes swept the chamber one last time. And remember that everything you thought you knew about humans was wrong. We do not break. We do not surrender. We adapt, we survive, and we form bonds that nothing in the universe can destroy. She stepped through the door. Behind her, the screen still showed Nexus 7, glowing like a jewel against the darkness of space. On its surface, visible even from orbit, a message was being grown into the living forest. Written in the common language of the galaxy. It said simply, Lyra's home. The council would debate for months. They would argue about precedent and protocol and the dangers of recognizing a planetary consciousness. They would send envoys and scientists and negotiators. In the end, they would accept Lyra's demands. They had no choice. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of partnership had begun, and at the center of it all stood a human woman who had refused to die, refused to break, refused to accept that anything was impossible. She had been sent to the Untamed world as a punishment. She had conquered it with understanding. She had claimed it as her abode, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.